Welcome back. I'm Avi Lewis, and you are on the map. Tomorrow night, there'll be a big concert in Rostock, Germany, headlined by Bono and featuring a cast of German pop stars. Then Friday, Bono launches the Africa edition of Vanity Fair magazine that he guest-edited, complete with 20 different cover portraits of people who care about Africa, including George Bush, Madonna, and Bono. It's all part of what we call the Bonoization of development. Here is a capsule history of this new phenomenon.
We can actually do something about this.
That's our job.
We know what to do.
It's not misty-eyed Irish rock star nonsense.
For the G8 in 2005, Bono and Bob Geldof put on the biggest rock show in world history. 3 billion people tuned into concerts that aimed to keep the heat on G8 leaders and make them make poverty history.
About the clothes in Africa. What makes it the bands?
On stage, Bono challenged the colonial model of rich people helping poor countries.
We're not looking for charity. We're looking for justice.
But in the back rooms, he was cutting deals on behalf of Africa.
I've just come back from the most famous golf course in the world, Glen Eagles, to meet with these powerful men.
Bono used his backstage pass and all his rock star charm to win over world leaders, who were all too happy to pose with him. Who wouldn't want to hang out with a celebrity who had done his homework on the intricacies of debt relief? Of course, much of that goodwill proved ephemeral. What followed was a flood of broken promises. But Bono had already launched yet another epic pop culture project.
Now you're going shopping to help save the world.
Kicked off with a spending spree on Oprah.
It's Gap, it's Armani, it's Apple, it's Motorola.
The Red Campaign raises money for the Global AIDS Fund, one cell phone at a time.
You never did nothing good in your life.
Buy this Moto Red phone.
I don't do commercials. I mean, these red phones are beautiful.
Mega brands agree to donate a portion of profits from Red branded goods and generously decide to market the hell out of those products at the same time. Despite harsh criticism of the Red Campaign, including allegations that the marketing value to the brands far outstripped their contributions to the fund, despite a report from Data, Bono's own organization, that G8 promises remain undelivered, we're seeing more product red on the shelves, another G8 concert, and more super elite negotiations on behalf of the world's poor. Okay, listen. You may have gotten the impression that I'm a little cynical about this phenomenon. So, we've asked a good friend of Bob Geldof's, a close ally of Bono's, and one of the organizers of the Live 8 concerts to come on and give the other point of view. Paul Vallely also happens to be a columnist at The Independent in England and was one of the authors of Tony Blair's Commission for Africa. He joins me now from Manchester. Paul, welcome to On the Map.
Good to be here.
Now, going back to Glen Eagles 2 years ago, they got a tremendous amount of political cover from all of those people holding hands, waving their cell phones and lighters at concerts, and generally just, willing them to do the right thing. Surely the strategy is a failure.
No, because, that misunderstands how international politics works. I mean, just because they get in a room and they say we're going to do this doesn't mean you can give up putting the pressure on them. Year by year, you've got to keep at them to say, deliver what you promised, put some more flesh on the bones. We need to know exactly what you're going to do on health and education, how your AIDS strategy is going to be improved. I mean, a quarter of the people with AIDS in Africa have now got treatment they didn't have before Glen Eagles, but there are 3/4 still to go. So it's a question of keeping the pressure on.
There are specific protests this week against what is called the legitimization of this process by groups that simply say the G8 represents the most powerful interests in the world and they have no real interest in fixing the structural problems in the global economy.
Look, there are two ways of bringing change in the world. One is by revolutionary change. We've got to change everything and make it all democratic. The other is by just reformist, gradual saying, let's try and make things a bit better as each opportunity presents itself. And I don't accept that the G8 is not susceptible to pressure and is not capable of doing the right thing, quite frankly. The old days of the G8 being a fireside chat amongst the world's great powers have gone. It's a formal summit now at which things can be pushed. And we've seen from the example of our own Prime Minister here in Britain, Tony Blair, who got behind this agenda and who really believes in it and has pushed it. And Angela Merkel in Germany is pretty much the same. She seems to have decided that this is something that's morally right.
There's also a critique coming from the global south that this idea that rock stars, celebrities, or anyone in the global north, in the rich countries, can actually represent their interests, that the point is to give agency to those countries that are at the losing end of globalization, and that there is something that's just not honest about the process of various rich parties negotiating among themselves. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's a fair point. The Commission for Africa, which Geldof sat on, and I co-wrote the final report for, made that point, said we need more African voices at the IMF, the World Bank, and in all these other international institutions. Tony Blair signed up to that, and he's been pushing that. So I don't think that you can say it's all black and white. There are some things that you can get movement on, and you should push for them. Of course, in an ideal world, it shouldn't be up to pop stars to be representatives of African people, but we don't live in an ideal world. We live in a real world, and we've just got to try and make it better.
Now, here in the real world, there's a little campaign called the Red Campaign, which Bono launched on Oprah with a shopping spree. A decade ago, we started talking about greenwashing, corporations going green in order to polish their images and solicit new consumers or a better feeling among consumers. Are we seeing red washing now, where corporations have this easy outlet to sort of dust up the face of multinationals?
I mean, I think you've got to make use of multinational corporations and their marketing budgets. And if they're prepared to put their marketing budgets into promoting the cause of raising consciousness about the need for action on AIDS in Africa, that's good. And
okay. Hold on, Paul. A building-sized photo of Chris Rock in a Gap sweatshirt is not exactly marketing budgets going into raising consciousness about AIDS. Come on.
No, it works both ways. I'm not saying this is black and white. Obviously, it's in the company's interest to do that. But it's also in the interest of the development movement that they do that. Look, you've got all these people who will go out on the streets and campaign about things. The people who join the One campaign, the White campaign, the Make Poverty History. But the kind of people the Red campaign is trying to reach are people who only listen to big, bold messages on the sides of skyscrapers. They live in a world that's bombarded by stuff. And the way to get our message across to them is to join in the bombardment. We just live, it's a fallen world, everything's not ideal, but we do what we can to try and make things better. That's what Bono does, that's what Geldof does, that's what we all do.
Paul, we're out of time, but thanks for being on the map.
Okay.
And the heiress, the sick man, and the group of 8. What the world is watching on the map in 3 minutes.